The origins of the Egyptian pyramids have been a mystery for more than 4,000 years. But after centuries of research, archaeologists seem to be drawing to a conclusion that would explain these ancient monuments. Unfortunately, what SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has to say about these pyramids might capture the world's attention, but also irritate these archaeologists. What does the tech billionaire have to say about the pyramids? Why does his opinion about the pyramids unsettle archaeologists all over the world? Even if you aren't much of a historian, you've probably seen stories about the Egyptian pyramids in books, movies, and even the news. Several literary and non-fictional stories have been written about these ancient masonry structures, from being the locations of a lost civilization to being the tombs of ancient pharaohs and their wives. However, what you might not know is that loads of everything you've read and seen about them have been born out of more speculation than facts. In fact, there's a possibility that 95% of everything you know about the pyramids is a lie. Even so, it can be difficult to look at these old mysteries and not fall for the various lies that have been spread about them. Take a good look at the earliest known Egyptian pyramid, the Pyramid of Djoser, or the most famous of all the pyramids, the Pyramid of Giza, and you'll understand why it's difficult to comprehend that humans were this sophisticated in ancient times. The Pyramid of Djoser, also called the Step Pyramid of Djoser, is a 205-foot tall, 6-tiered, and 4-sided structure built in the 27th century BC for the burial of Pharaoh Djoser. Up until 1997, it was largely described as the earliest large-scale cut stone structure made by man. The Great Pyramid of Giza and other pyramids from the 4th, 5th, and 6th dynasties were all inspired by the design of the Pyramid of Djoser. On the other hand, the Pyramid of Giza is the only remaining example of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the largest pyramid in Egypt. The Great Pyramid, which is believed to be about 4,600 years old, was the tallest man-made structure for more than 3,800 years. Additionally, the breathtaking structure was built by quarrying almost 2.3 million large blocks weighing 6 million tons in total, and according to ancient Greek historian Herodotus, it was built by Pharaoh Khufu. Herodotus, who wrote about 2,000 years ago after the Pyramid of Giza was completed, described Khufu as a tyrant and emphasized that such a massive structure could only have been erected by the ruthless exploitation of the peasants. Herodotus even emphasized that it took over 20 years to construct with a group of 100,000 laborers working in shifts of 3 months. Other Greek historians like Diodorus supported the connection between slavery and the construction of the pyramids. However, recent discoveries have shown proof that this is not true. Very recently, a tomb of more than 4,000 years old was discovered, and it was revealed to have belonged to people who worked on the Great Pyramids of Giza. Famous Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass claimed that the discoveries demonstrate that the workers who built the Great Pyramid were not slaves, as we've been told. Rather, they were paid Egyptian laborers. These findings assist in debunking the long-standing misconception regarding the construction of the pyramids. Hawass further emphasized that the proximity of these burial sites to the pyramids and the dignified burial of the workers received supported the idea that the pyramids were built out of loyalty to the pharaohs rather than through oppression and forced labor. However, while the theory about the pyramids being built by slaves might have been debunked, the latest theory by Elon Musk about the pyramids might spark your interest and might even prove that archaeologists might have been lying to us for years. The Tesla CEO took to Twitter to assert that the aliens had built the pyramids. Musk underlined that an advanced civilization from another planet would have been needed to construct such a massive structure more than 4,600 years ago. Musk's stance on aliens building the pyramids, however, forced the response of many, particularly Egypt's Minister of International Cooperation, Rania al-Masad, who invited Musk to visit the pyramids to study them better. "Mr. Musk, we are waiting for you," she tweeted. Hawass also weighed in on the topic, stating firmly that Musk's tweet was a complete hallucination. The former Minister of the State of Antiquities Affairs and Egyptologist went on to say that the discovered tombs of the pyramid builders are more than sufficient evidence that prove that Egyptian laborers, not slaves or outsiders, built the ancient pyramids. However, despite this astounding response to Elon Musk's theory regarding the mysteries, archaeologists have been hiding about the pyramids. Some doubts remain, like, why would the CEO of SpaceX make such a claim? Well, Elon Musk loves attention, but also Elon Musk is fascinated by aliens. We're talking about someone who plans to take humans to Mars and colonize it, someone who recently acknowledged having alien buddies. Regardless, while his tweet can often pass as tongue-in-cheek in some cases, this claim of his might not be so far-fetched. And one reason Musk's argument is conceivable is the Younger Dryas impact theory. The hypothesis affirms that there was a comet strike on Earth roughly 13,000 years ago that wiped out evidence of alien civilization. The theory holds that there existed an even more magnificent civilization before ancient Mesopotamia, Babylonia, and Egypt, and as such, archaeologists have been deceiving us. Interestingly, many religions and stories from different people around the world back the explanation of untold floods and destruction happening in the world many years ago. However, away from religion and mythology, it's important to note that there are arguments for the theory that ancient Egyptians may have inherited those pyramids from a more advanced civilization, considering construction that can be attributed to the Egyptians are usually of lower quality than the Great Pyramid. And Elon Musk seems to use the Great Sphinx of Giza and Valley temples as the reason for his assertions. Over the years, archaeologists have claimed that the Great Sphinx dates back to 2500 BC, but recent evidence suggests we have been misled, and that the Great Sphinx may have existed for many thousands of years before the ancient Egyptians. One piece of evidence that suggests this is the erosion found on the Great Sphinx, and according to many experts, this must have been caused by thousands of years of heavy rain. If this is correct, then that would mean that the Great Sphinx is way older than the old Egyptian Empire and possibly dates back to the time when Egypt received more rain than it does in recent times. Evidence suggests that thousands of years of intense rain must have caused the Great Sphinx's erosion, which means that the monument predates 2500 BCE, a time when Egypt saw more rain than it does today. As a matter of fact, experts are suggesting the statue was carved around the end of the Ice Age when the Nile Valley saw an extended period of excessive rainfall. Surprisingly, surface dating by luminescence of the Valley of the Sphinx Temple shockingly disproves these suggestions, as it fits exactly with the period archaeologists have long recognized as the time it was built. The Tesla CEO, however, adamantly maintains that the dates are led to believe represent the period during which the pyramids were restored, and not when they were actually constructed. Musk believes that the dates were made of the temples inside the pyramids and not of the pyramids themselves. Renowned Egyptologist Mark Lehner, who has spent the last 30 years working on the Giza Plateau, made some remarkable discoveries that support the SpaceX CEO's claims. Lehner and geologist Tom Egner established that the Great Sphinx's limestone and the limestone used to build the temples had the exact fossil assemblage, indicating that they must have come from the same source. They also learned that a trench surrounding the Sphinx served as the excavation site for the Temple of the Sphinx. The discovery is, however, important because as much as archaeologists point to the discovery as evidence that the temples surrounding the pyramids were constructed at the same time as the pyramid, it is also solid evidence that the pyramid existed before the temple. And this is confirmed by the different weathering patterns on these old masonry buildings, as well as on the portions of the trench that were used to construct the temples. Author and historian Graham Hancock asserted that the weathering must have happened after the walls were excavated from the trench and placed in the Sphinx's temple. He stressed that these walls, which have been dated to approximately 2500 BCE, were the ones that underwent weathering in the trench, from which the walls of the Sphinx and Valley temples were extracted. Besides that, it should come as no surprise that archaeologists are capable of deceiving us about the pyramids. And one instance is how professional archaeologists heavily link the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre. They all link it to Khafre because French archaeologist Auguste Mariette found a life-size statue made of black volcanic rock of the Pharaoh Khafre within the Valley Temple in 1853. Zahi Hawass even wrote in 2006, "Most scholars believe, as I do, that the Sphinx represents Khafre and forms an integral part of the pyramid complex. Therefore, in a sense, there are many attributions given that they seem related. But this recent evidence greatly shows that archaeologists may have misunderstood the relationships and had been mistaken about the age of the pyramids and the absence of ancient civilization all along." After all, what would these archaeologists make of the latest discovery in North America? Of nanodiamonds, a type of diamond that results from a cosmic impact, or the Göbekli Tepe ruins in Turkey. The uncovered ruins of the Göbekli Temple were dated back to at least 11,600 years old, which means it's more than 6,000 years older than the other megalithic monuments like Stonehenge. How else do you explain a civilization capable of such advanced architecture and art more than 11,600 years ago? Regardless, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis has lost acceptance within the scientific community over the last decades given its extraterrestrial origin, but Elon Musk continues to provide evidence that we are being misled about the Egyptian pyramids. More recently, a mysterious void was discovered in the Great Pyramid of Giza, and is the first significant inner structure discovered in the pyramid since the 1800s. For the biggest Egyptian pyramid, voids and anomalies are not surprising, given that the interior is believed to have more cavities than most people would think. However, what makes this discovery not only mysterious but fascinating is that it's 153 foot long, 26 foot tall, and the huge void is believed to lead to the burial chamber of Khufu. Besides that, the space's dimensions resemble those of the pyramid's Grand Gallery. The huge void was discovered when the pyramid was scanned using radiography, a type of imaging technique that uses cosmic rays to detect voids in massive structures. The imaging technology was first demonstrated on the Pyramid of Giza, and since muon particles can pass through empty space more quickly than solid materials, scientists and archaeologists have used this to look through cathedral walls and even volcanoes. Interestingly, because they haven't yet gained access to the area, archaeologists are unable to determine if the enormous void is horizontal or inclined, or if it is made up of a single construction or a series of succeeding structures. The president and co-founder of the Heritage Innovation Presentation or HIP Institute was quoted in a press briefing saying, "What we do know is that this void is there, that it's impressive, and that it is not expected by any kind of theory. However, there are no known passages that lead to the area. So, if you want to investigate this enigmatic void, you have to wait." As a result, both researchers and archaeologists have since emphasized that there are no current intentions to drill into the void, since they are unsure of how doing so may harm the entire pyramid. Nonetheless, there are reasons to think that since this enigmatic hole lines up with the Great Pyramid's upper chambers, it may have been an internal ramp used to carry the large roof blocks into position. It's the position of the void that to me makes this interpretation the most likely. It's too well placed for getting blocks into place up there. Kate Spence, a University of Cambridge archaeologist who studies ancient Egypt, was quoted saying, "This evidence of a ramp system being used in ancient Egypt, however, supports Elon Musk's assertions that the civilization in ancient Egypt was far more advanced than we were made to believe." To support the Tesla CEO's claim, researchers in Egypt recently discovered a 4,500-year-old ramp system used to transport alabaster stones out of the quarry. The remains of the ramp system, which dates back as far as the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, who is believed to have built the Great Pyramid of Giza, was found in an ancient alabaster quarry at Hatnub, a site in the eastern desert. Surprisingly, this ramp-up system does not reveal the way the pyramids were built, thereby emphasizing how mysterious the pyramids of Egypt can be. Kara Cooney, a professor of Egyptian art and architecture at the University of California, LA, had this to say about the discovery. "It's a stretch to take an alabaster quarry and say that this is how the pyramids were built, because the pyramids weren't built out of alabaster. The way that the ancient Egyptians cut and moved stone is still very mysterious." Her theory was down to the fact that alabaster is a softer mineral and is different from the heavy stone blocks which ancient Egyptians supposedly used to build the outer structure of the pyramids. So, Elon Musk may not be wrong after all, because even if there is evidence of Egyptians' technological knowledge and civilization, there is
had that third failure in a row. Did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
Like what? How many
I
hours?
was working, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory. I worked everywhere from I worked in the paint shop, general assembly, body shop.
You ever worry about yourself imploding? Like it's just too much?
Absolutely. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. And people should not work this hard. They should not do this. It's very painful.
Painful in what sense?
It hurts my brain and my heart. So this is not recommended for anyone. I just did it because if I didn't do it, then good chance Tesla would die.
First of all, I really need to give some thought to how can I provide advice that would be most helpful, and I'm not sure I've given enough thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? and that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100-hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
And
it's
then
a lot of work.
all those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. I guess the way that I usually describe myself is an engineer, because that's basically most of what I do is engineering. So I spend most of the week with my engineering and design team working on the current car and future cars and the rockets and spacecraft and that kind of thing. I mean, I should say that when I was a kid, I didn't really have any grand designs. I mean, the reason I started programming computers is because I like computer games, and I play lots of computer games, and I learned that if I wrote software and sold it, then I could get more money and buy better computers. So it wasn't really, with some grand vision or anything. When I was growing up, I'd read lots of books, and they were very often set in the United States, and it seemed like a lot of new technology was being developed in the United States. So I thought, okay, I really want to work on new technology, so I want to get to Silicon Valley.
Well, right now the only things that are really stressing me out in a big way are AI, obviously. That's like always there, and I'm working really hard on Tesla Model 3 production, and we're making good progress, but it's hugely hard work. But those are the two most stressful things in my life right now. And you're going up against entrenched competitors. There's no... I gave basically both SpaceX and Tesla from the beginning a probability of less than 10% of likely to succeed. And in the beginning, I wouldn't even let my friends invest because I didn't want to lose their money. I thought it was like, I'd rather lose my own money. So, and then we almost did die at SpaceX, actually. So I budgeted for 3 flights. I mean, technically, I did have a plan where I had the money from PayPal. I had like about 180 million from PayPal. And I thought, I'll allocate half of that to SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City, and that should be fine. I'll have 90 million, like it's just lots, But then what happened is things cost more and took longer than I thought. So I had a choice of either put the rest of the money in or the companies are going to die. And it's like, so I ended up putting all the money in and borrowing money for rent from friends. Like one of the most difficult choices I ever faced in life was in 2008. I think I had maybe $30 million left, or $30 or $40 million left in 2008. And I had 2 choices. I could put it all into one company, and then the other company would definitely die, or split it between the 2 companies. But if I split it between the 2 companies, then both might die. When you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, building something, it's like a child. And so it's like, which one am I going to let one starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I split the money between the 2. Fortunately, thank goodness, they both came through.
I don't really like risk for risk's sake or anything. And I do think that a lot of things are very risky with a low chance of success. But if you want to try to come up with an innovative breakthrough, that's going to be how it is. Anything which is significantly innovative is going to come with a significant risk of failure. But if you've got to take big chances in order for the potential for a big just if the outcome is exciting enough, then taking a big risk is worthwhile. It's really how I approach it. But then once executing down a path, I actually do my absolute best to reduce risk, because or to improve another way of saying it, to improve the probability of success, because when you try to do something that is very very risky, you have to spend a lot of effort trying to reduce that risk as you embark down that path. I mean, I think I'm kind of constitutionally just geared to just keep going. I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, it just I don't know. I mean, it certainly there are times when things don't go well, and then that's quite dispiriting for sure. And so then it's difficult to proceed with the same level of enthusiasm. But I do think the things that we're doing are pretty important to the future. And if we don't succeed, then it's not clear what other things would succeed. And if we don't succeed, then we will be certainly pointed to as a reason why people shouldn't even try for these things. So I think it's important that we do whatever is necessary to keep going. Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things,
like people shouldn't think people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like, I think that a lot of times people think like creating a company is going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun, and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you're like the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company. The most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it. And have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail. It's like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. So that's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. It can be quite stressful. But I mean, as long as people stay super focused on creating the absolute best product or service that really delights their end customer, like if they stay focused on that, then if you get it such that your customers want you to succeed, then you probably will.
Right.
I'm not sure there's any one particular thing. For me, some of the things I've described already, I think are very important. I think really an obsessive nature with respect to the quality of the product is very important. So being obsessive compulsive is a good thing in this context. Really liking what you do, whatever area that you get into. Given that even if you're the best, there's always a chance of failure. So I think it's important that you really like whatever you're doing. If you don't like it, life is too short. I'd say also if you like what you're doing, you think about it even when you're not working. I mean, it's something that your mind is drawn to, and if you don't like it, you just really can't make it work, I think.
Well, I mean, there are many that sort of. I mean, I think there's like some entropic basis for this. Like, there are many more ways to fail than to succeed. So you have to explore. I mean, particularly like for a rocket, there's like 1,000 ways to think and fail, and like one way it can work. So you could have a lot of rocket failures to explore all the ways in which it could fail. But I do think that one great thing about Silicon Valley is that failure is not a big stigma. So it's like if you try hard and it doesn't work out, that's okay. Like, you can learn from that and do another company, and it's not a big deal. And I think that's really one of the great things about Silicon Valley.
Talk about time management. How on earth do you do this?
Well,
Do you get any sleep?
Sometimes not enough. Sleep is really great, because I find if I don't get enough sleep, then I'm quite grumpy. I mean, obviously, I think most people are that way. And also, like, I try to sort of figure out what's the right amount of sleep, because I found I could drop below a certain threshold of sleep, and although I'd be awake more hours and I could sustain it, I would get less done because my mental acuity would be affected. So I found generally the right number for me is around 6 to 6.5 hours on average per night. You need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, like every waking hour. That's the thing I would say particularly if you're starting a company. And I mean, if you do simple math, you say like, okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company. The other thing I'd say is that if you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. I mean, all a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company. So do everything you can to gather great people if you're creating a company.
The issue is like the company's either going to go bankrupt, or if we do not cut costs immediately. This is not a uncaring situation. It's like if the whole ship sinks, then nobody's going to drown.
I think there's the risk, civilizational risk, is decreased if Twitter, the more we can increase the trust of Twitter as a public platform. Because there is a huge problem with spam and bots and trolls on Twitter, and organizations trying to manipulate public opinion, and just generally making the system worse. But I think that there is an answer to that, which is to get as many regular users of Twitter to be a subscriber for $8 a month. And you'll get a lot more than just a blue check mark for $8 a month, because now we can afford long-form video, long audio, podcasts, and we can also start sharing revenue with content creators, which is essential.
Well, shutting down one of our service centers was quite difficult, because it turns out there were, I thought the service centers were redundant, but there were, in fact, a lot of things that were hard-coded to this one service center. And so when we shut it down, we actually, it was quite catastrophic. We lost a lot of functionality, which we sort of really rushed to put it back.
Twitter, for sure, I think needs to do a lot more on video.
and it's kind of a no-brainer to enable a longer video on Twitter and also enable content creators to make a living with content that they submit to Twitter. So Twitter really needs to give a revenue share to content creators in order for them to make a living creating content and having that content be on Twitter.
Well, there are still a few unresolved matters. You've probably read about the question as to whether the number of fake and spam users on the system is less than 5%, as Twitter claims, which I think is probably not most people's experience when using Twitter. So we're still awaiting resolution on that matter, and that is a very significant matter. So we're awaiting resolution on that. And then, of course, there is the question of will the debt portion of the round come together, and then will the shareholders vote in favor? So I think those are the three things that stand in the that need to be resolved before the transaction can complete.
Do you have any regrets buying Twitter?
I think it was something that needed to be done.
I mean, you said
It's
earlier
quite
that
difficult, you know. I'd say that the pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. This hasn't been some sort of party, so it's been really quite a stressful situation. For the last several months, not an easy one. But apart from the pain, I mean, so it's been quite painful. But I think at the end of the day, it should have been done. I think were there many mistakes made along the way? Of course, but all's well that ends well. And so I feel like we're headed to a good place. We're roughly break even. I think we're trending towards being cash flow positive very soon, like literally in a matter of months. The advertisers are returning. I think the quality of recommended tweets has improved significantly, and we've taken a lot of feedback from people that have looked at the open source recommendation algorithm, and we've made a lot of improvements even since that was made open source, and we're going to keep doing that. So overall, I think the trend is very good. At this point, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what makes Twitter work. And we're also doing it with 2 data centers instead of 3. So we used to have 3 data centers. We shut down one of them. So we were actually roughly two-thirds of the prior compute capability. But we've made so many improvements to the core algorithm. In some cases, we improved the core algorithm by 80%. So the actual CPU usage or computer usage is dramatically less. But the results speak for themselves. The system, despite being at all-time highs of usage, is fast. It's responsive. It's more responsive than it was before the takeover. And we've also added long-form tweets. We've added you can now post videos up to 2 hours, and soon videos of any length. We're rolling out our subscriber programs so people can. Content creators can actually make a living on Twitter by having some of their content behind a paywall. We open source the algorithm, so there's transparency about what tweets get shown, what content gets shown versus not. And I think you say, like, what are you really going to trust? Are you going to trust some sort of black box algorithm from some other site, or are you going to trust the thing that you can actually see and understand? I actually think there's less these days because we've eliminated so many of the bots which were pushing scams and spam. And previous management turned a blind eye to the bots because their bonuses were tied to user growth. And if your compensation is tied to user growth, well, you're not going to look too closely at some of the users. That's part of the problem. So I think we've got less misinformation because we don't have the bot problem that we used to do. And we also have given a lot of attention to community notes, which corrects with community itself corrects misinformation. It's been very effective. I mean, it really is quite entertaining. I mean, it's like soap opera, because when I first made the offer, the response was the board adopted a poison pill. So they were like, hell no, you can't buy Twitter. We'd rather die. We'd like chew on cyanide before being bought. That was their initial response.
And then, and then you said, actually, I don't want to buy it.
Yes, and then they said, no, you must buy us. Gun to the head, you have to buy us. I'm like, are you the same people who said you'd rather die than be bored? Doesn't that seem odd? Well, I think those are two good rules. Yeah, don't tweet if you're wasted, or really upset about something. Probably. I mean, a good friend of mine actually had a good suggestion, and it has helped, which is that if you're going to tweet something that maybe is controversial, save it as a draft and look at it the next day and see if you still want to tweet it. And that has been a good rule of thumb.
So, I mean, right now, if you're on Twitter, you'll see a lot of links posted to YouTube and TikTok, and that's because, at least until now, Twitter has not even given them enough video length to post their video, and then they give the content creators no means of monetizing the video. So we're going to change that rapidly at Twitter. It's going to be transformative. But if we can get enough verified users, and we're going to prioritize Twitter search, replies, mentions by verified users first. And then we also, since we're using payment authentication, we're piggybacking on the authentication system of the payment system, and we're also piggybacking off of Apple's authentication system, which is another layer of security. So the net effect will be, over time, that the verified users will pretty much always be at the top of comments and search, and you won't really see, you'll have to scroll far to see the unverified users, which will be the bots and trolls and whatnot. And this is sort of analogous to Google search. Like, if you go to page 8 of Google search, there will be a ton of scams and stuff, call it page 8, page 9, something like that. But the thing is that Google search results are so good for page 1 that you never go to page 8. Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law. So one of the things that I believe Twitter should do is open source the algorithm and make any changes to people's tweets. If they're emphasized or de-emphasized, that action should be made apparent so anyone can see that action has been taken. So there's no sort of behind-the-scenes manipulation, either algorithmically or manually. In my view, Twitter should match the laws of the country, and really, that there's an obligation to do that. But going beyond that, and having it be unclear who's making what changes to where, having tweets sort of mysteriously be promoted and demoted with no insight into what's going on, having a black box algorithm promote some things and not other things, I think this can be quite dangerous.
So that's a pretty big number. And really, I think you want as much of the world as possible on Twitter. You want to be as inclusive as possible, the broadest demographic. And for that to happen, people must like being on Twitter. So if they're being harassed or if they're uncomfortable, they're just not going to use Twitter. And they're, we have to sort of strike this balance of, allowing people to say what they want to say, but also making people comfortable on Twitter. Or they simply won't use it. It will be, it'll be sort of quite niche. And I think there's also a lot that should be done in terms of enhancing the core technology and offerings of Twitter. Like right now, if somebody does, say, a video, like let's say a content creator does a video, then they're going to put that video on YouTube and just put a link to it from Twitter, because they're able to monetize their content on YouTube, but not on Twitter. And I think it's going to be really important for, if you want people to put the content on Twitter, which we do, then there has to be a mechanism for content creators to monetize that content. And so they could dual post it. They could post it to YouTube and to Twitter. But I think it's crazy right now that content creators will use Twitter to drive traffic to their YouTube video, because that's how they make a living. And that really should be on Twitter.
Yeah, there's just no way to know the number of bots. It's like as unknowable as the human soul, basically.
So
because we have no idea what level of witchcraft and alchemy is needed to determine this bot percentage.
have you determined?
I said, like, why not try calling people? But I haven't got a response. Like, have you tried calling people or something? Like maybe try
The
that.
answer? It's not a bot?
No, I don't know. But I think like that would be one of the things to do, to say like, have you tried calling them, as opposed to like trying to read the tea leaves here? That's like impossible, Obviously, you can have an account that looks exactly like a human account, or is being operated where one person is operating 1,000 accounts or something. But that person can only buy one toaster. They're not going to buy 1,000 toasters. So you care about like number of unique, real people that are on the system. It's extremely fundamental. And anyone who uses Twitter is well aware that the comment threads are full of spam, scam, and just a lot of fake accounts. So it seems beyond reasonable for Twitter to claim that the number of essentially the number of said another way, the number of real unique humans that you see making comments on a daily basis on Twitter is above 95%. That is what they're claiming.
I want to be clear, content moderation policies have not changed at Twitter, and it is not okay to engage in hateful conduct on Twitter. We have had actually oddly targeted attacks where temporarily people have been able to put some hate speech on Twitter, but then it's been taken down immediately. So now, part of what I'm trying to achieve with this sort of enabling everyone to be payment verified with Twitter Blue is to try to get as many people payment verified as possible. It's only $8 a month, although for some people that were complaining about that, and these are people who pay more than that for their latte.
How many